Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received, and the translation reads like this. Hello, Brother Nashi. Can you please post my own story as anonymous? I don't blame myself. Rather, I blame the people that I became friends with when I was in South Africa. If it was not for them, maybe I could have been in South Africa right now, just working like what other Zimbabweans are doing there. But instead, I became friends with people that messed me up so much that even for me to get a passport, I was told by one lawyer not to do it. So I have nothing, and I am stuck here in Zim. I am back, but at least even though I am stuck in my country, it is far much better to be stuck with money, because how many Zimbabweans have passport but do not have money? But it is just painful that I can't enjoy my money. How can I enjoy my money when I don't have a passport? I was told that because there are some cases that are still pending, they need to be fixed before I can go and apply for a passport. I so wish one day that I can be free as a bird to go wherever that I want to go to. Long story short, Brother Nashim, it happened when I was 20 years old. My dad had passed away and my mom was just struggling. And then I told her that I wanted to go to South Africa. I had this other friend of mine, and then we went to Mbudzi, and whilst we were waiting at that hiking spot, that was when we saw this other truck. The truck stopped his truck, and then a lot of people rushed there. Most of the people, they were in the front cab, but he was carrying this empty container. So he picked up almost everyone that was there who was going to South Africa. We were loaded in that empty container. We just had to open that big door just a little bit so that at least we can get some oxygen, but it was hot as hell inside of that container. And when we arrived in Beitbridge, everyone got off, and that was the beginning of my problems. For the only money that we had, this truck driver had overcharged us. He was from Malawi. He threatened us that if we did not pay, he was going to turn us into baboons. So we gave him all the money that we had, which was only 70 rand that I had. My friend only had 70 rand. I found out that I was left with 5 rand. That was all that we had. And still, we were not even in our destination country. We were still in Zim. We stayed in Beitbridge for about 2 days. We were just like homeless street kids picking up food from the refuse bins until we had these guys that were talking. We overheard them. One seemed to be a jack of all trades. He was speaking of all these places that he had ever gone to in South Africa, from Cape Town to Messina. There was nowhere where he did not know. There was no job that he had not done. He even claimed to have worked with the police, in which I found out that it was the truth by the time that we arrived in South Africa. But this man, he was a thief who messed up my life. And this is what they do. If you are part of a gang, you recruit others that do not know anything, and when they would go out to steal, before we had found out that this is what was happening, they were using us so that if you get caught, then they can never be caught by the police. They were using us, and it is very difficult for me now to return to South Africa because of some of the crimes that I committed, not because I wanted to, but I was also a victim of human trafficking. And I thought that being trafficked, it is a good thing. This man promised us that he had his own boss who was working in the construction, but the boss turned out to be part of a construction mafia. We used to do a lot of illegal stuff. We would be sent by people that owned tenders. So for them to keep on getting tenders, then they would send us into government buildings to sabotage some things, and then they would be given the tender. As for us, we were not making any money at all. To tell you the truth, the amount that we were being given, whilst these men that owned the tenders were getting millions, we were only getting paid at least 120 rands a month. During those years, it seemed as if it was a lot, until I got arrested. These people, they used to promise us that once we get arrested, since they had money, they would provide lawyers for us. But the time that we got arrested, I tried to reach out to my friend. He did not even respond at all. I saved my time, got deported, returned back home with nothing. It was a constant struggle. So that was when I thought that it was far much better for me to engage in these rituals after I had a connection with a very powerful Sangoma that is here in Harare. I spoke with this man and he told me that it was going to be very difficult for me to have money because in our family, one of our grandfathers, he had made an oath that if any of his offspring will ever try to do these rituals, then that person will die immediately. So I was told that the only way that I can do this was to separate myself from my own bloodline by doing something that was quite evil. I had to bury my mother. I buried my mother alive, Brother Nashi. Yes, that is what I did. With the help of the Sangoma, he inflicted my mother with a certain disease. These doctors that you see running up and down, they know nothing about the spiritual world. My mother was declared dead when we went with her to the hospital, for she was no longer breathing. But even though she was not breathing, but her soul was still there. She was still alive until the time when we buried her. I buried my mom without any of her relatives being there. I buried my mother in the middle of the night. So after my mother had stayed in the mortuary for 3 days, and this Sangoma was busy using some charms on all of my mother's relatives so that wherever they were, they would be stuck and won't be able to come for the funeral. We had to drive from Harare and we went back to where my parents had built their home in the village. All that I had done was that I had informed the village headman, who also is a ritualist, but it is a different story. It's not like they do it for money. He only did these rituals to grow so many crops, to be respected in the village, to have a lot of livestock, and to sleep with any woman in the village that he wants. So he spoke with the Sangoma. I don't know how they did it, but this man then allowed me to bury my mother in the middle of the night. And according to our culture, it is a taboo. No one is allowed to be buried in the middle of the night. And according to our Shona culture, once your mother has passed away, she is no longer your relative. Therefore, it is a taboo to bury your own mother in the middle of the night alone. And this I had to do so as to cut ties with my own bloodline because of this sin that I was committing against my own mother. I dug up a grave alone when it was 2 meters deep. That was when I got out, went to where the traditional healer had his car parked, because we used his car to transport my mother's coffin from the mortuary back to the village. I was helped by the traditional healer's assistants. They helped me with everything, but when it came time to bury her, that was when I had a knock. I heard a sound. It was my mother. She was alive. She was fighting. The traditional healer then came and started nodding his head and said, yes, 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 yes. I was worried that it was not going to happen. I asked him, why was he worried that it was not going to happen? For I could hear that my mother was fighting. She was alive. We needed to take out this coffin to free her, thinking that maybe I had failed this ritual. That Sangoma then said, bury, you need to bury her. Do not feel sorry for her, for if you feel sorry for her, you are not going to make it, my son. You are not going to be rich. She is supposed to feel the pain. She is supposed to suffocate. Let her feel the pain. That was when they let me into my mother's grave, and then I had to open up the coffin. My mother at that time, she was not like really conscious, but she could tell that it was I. She said, my son, pull me out. I am not dead. And then the Sangoma said, come up, so that you can finish the job. That was the cruel thing that I did. I buried my mom. I just did not bury her. I had to open up the coffin so that she can feel the soil falling straight on her face. My mother was weak to even block the soil as I was busy burying her. After that was when I cried because of the evil thing that I had done. I buried my own mother, and in this ritual, I felt that I lost my soul. The Holy Spirit is for real. I felt the Spirit of the Lord leaving my heart in that moment of burying my mother. For the sin that I had committed, it was too dark. I looked into the skies. For the first time in my life, there was no clouds. The sky was clear, but I saw no stars. I only saw darkness that had enveloped the whole earth. And we returned back to Harare. When I date a woman, when that woman complains to me about money and money, when I think of all the things that I had to do to be here where I am, I feel so much anger in my heart. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our brother. That was the translation of his message. Strange things indeed, they do happen in this world.